Dear guests, dear colleagues, dear students, dear ladies and gentlemen, I am honored and thrilled to open the 12th conference of the Nordic Association for Semiotic Studies. The title of the conference, Meaning in Perception and in the Senses, suggests the importance of the senses. Apparently, as you climb in the introduction of the program, is the gateway to the environment, but definitely it's the key in our understanding of the world. And I'm really amazed at the number of topics you're going to cover in the conference, joining so many modes and modalities. I see meaning making and judicial discourse, meaning making in pictures and films and dance, and many more modes. And it's really impressive. I'm not going to dwell on what you're going to do in this conference because you are specialists in the field. My background is cognitive linguistics, so I was really happy to see the theory of embodiment so neatly intertwined into the texture of the conference. And I'm really going to listen to some of the presentations, probably online, joining you from time to time. But before I do that, I would like to say a few words about the class you are in. So you are in Vilnius University, which is more than 440 years old, and in the Faculty of Philology, which is home to 25 languages and cultures. I'm happy to see so many faces here live after a long period. And I hope that there are quite a few people joining us online behind the screens. It's a very nice opportunity, a huge opportunity to be here together with you. And I thought that after you finish your presentations and discussions, don't forget that there is hustle and bustle outside these walls, that you can just walk around those nice streets here in the old town of Vilnius. There is wine and coffee and conversations over coffee and wine, and some new ideas are born there as well. So enjoy your stay. I hope that this will be a nice opportunity for you to meet people here and beyond those walls. I would also like to use this opportunity and thank the organizers, my colleagues from Grammar Center of Semiotics and Literary Theory, and especially Associate Professor Paulius Evseevas, who's been in charge of all these arrangements and who's taken effort to bring you all here. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for listening.
Hi, everyone. My name is Morten Tønnesen, and I'm the president of the Nordic Association for Semiotic Studies. I think I've seen quite a bit of you before. I recognize quite literally half the faces. That's a COVID joke. related to the mask mandate. We had to delay this conference compared to when we originally planned to organize it in the summer, but I'm glad that we can organize it now. And I'm also glad there's so many physically present, even though we have to stick to this hybrid format with some taking part from a distance and some being here together in this room. So the Nordic Association for Semiotic Studies is, I hope, quite open-minded, both in the sense that we count both Nordic countries and Baltic countries as members of the association, including Lithuania, but also in the sense that the audience for our conferences and events is international and in principle global. Anyone is welcome to attend our events. So these events are meant to be a regular meeting place for semioticians in the Nordic and Baltic countries, but also in a wider sense internationally. And we hold these conferences every second year. Last time was in my home country in Norway, in Stavanger. And now this time around, we're here in Vilnius. I would also like to thank from the start, the organizing committee consisting of Paulius and Alin, who have done a lot of good work in preparation of this conference. I hope we'll have 3 interesting and rewarding days together. And the last thing I want to say is just to remind you that in the program for today, we have the General Assembly of the Association at 8 o'clock tonight, and everybody attending the conference is welcome. Thank you.
All right, so I think we're going to start. We have Jacques Fonteny to start us off with the keynote. Just a sec. And Irina Melnikova sharing this presentation.
Good morning, dear colleagues. It is a great honor and pleasure to introduce Professor Jacques Fonteny, the successor to Algirdas Julius Greimas, the key figure of the modern Paris School of Semiotics. He's professor at the University of Limoges. He is the member of Institut Universitaire de France, honorary president of the International Association of Visual Semiotics, honorary president of the French Association of Semiotics, and the author of nearly 300 scholarly papers in visual semiotics, literary semiotics, then general linguistics, and so on. And I think you know that his books are translated into Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, Korean, and Arabic languages. The title, wanted to say that you can see the title. The title of his paper is Sensitive Semiotics from Sensation to Intuition. We're happy to have Professor here in Vilnius. So the podium is yours, dear Jacques. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation, for the organization. And I'm happy to be with you, physically present, because it is the first seminar or colloquium or congress I've participated with some people in front of me during 2 years. Very happy to see you. Now I have to take this. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking to share the screen for everyone.
Jau matom jūsu skaidrės.
Thanks. I will speak of semiotics of the sensitive, from sensation to intuition. The classification of the different semiotic systems on the basis of their sensory channels, which determine the substance of their expressions, is a persistent temptation, in particular in academic discourse, where are thus distinguished verbal, visual, audiovisual, auditory, olfactory, semiotics, etc. However, the meaning of their sensitive does not rest on such psychological distinctions. The way in which sensations produce meanings is precisely the problem to be treated. And this treatment will begin by going beyond the distinction between sensory channels. We will begin by transposing sensitive experience into semiotic schemes and distinctive semiotic properties. These properties will make it possible to distinguish between different typical semiotic sensitive modes, each being characteristic of a specific field of sensitive presence and all independent from sensory channels. Thus, we will have access to schematic forms specific to the semiotic organization of the sensitive world, with categories such as the lobe body, hollow body, point body, or flesh body. We will mark the passage from an ontological and common sense classification to typologies of dynamic semiotic forms. Afterward, we will focus on the operations that allow us to go beyond the immediate sensitive dimension and to build an autonomous transsensitive dimension. These operations are not of conceptual and inferential order. They still obey the rules of sensitive transformations, and they are mainly intuition and imagination. First, the figural syntax of sensitive fields. We must first propose a figural syntax of sensitive. This figural syntax will first consist of a distinction between several types of sensitive fields and then a dynamic typology of figures of the sensitive body. the figural syntax of the sensitive modes will be based mainly on the metamorphosis of the sensitive experience field. In other words, the field of sensitive presence and the variations of actential relations between the feeling body, the others, and the world in general. The forms and properties of sensitive fields are syntagmatic and are specific varieties of the general form of what phenomenology calls field of presence. Let us start with an example so as to concretize this proposition, in particular, the independence of the sensitive fields with regard to the sensory channels. And this example is provided by the psychoanalyst Ferenczi. Ferenczi devoted whole development to the relations between smell and money, based on the conversion of anal eroticism into love of money. But this explanation would be insufficient if nothing common and stable persists in the conversion. The psychoanalyst tells an anecdote which reinforces our hypothesis concerning the existence and the permanence of a schematic sensitive field independent of the smell itself. A young man, frightened by the bad breath of his bride, refuses the marriage. He recognizes during analysis that he was in fact fleeing a marriage of money and that the bride breath had the smell of her family's fortune. Displacement from the unpleasant smell to the money is an exemplary illustration of the autonomy of sensitive fields regarding sensory channels. If we say that money can be smelled on the person who handles it, we recognize that the figural syntax of the sensitive is independent of the olfactory substance itself. Here, the figural syntax is that of an emanation, the source of which is a fuzzy and diffuse envelope of a body, which is absorbed by another body, the sensitive body. It turned out that the syntagmatic form of the sensitive field is the only stable element in the operation. The olfactory substance is not semiotic, while the corresponding sensitive field is a very semiotic expression scheme, which may be associated with various types of contents. A sensitive field is generally a centered domain where the reference body of perception takes a position at the center. It is characterized by its depth, which determines the position of the horizons of appearance and disappearance, the border between presence and absence, as well by the orientation, centrifugal or centripetal, of the flows that cross it. Any entity identified in the field occupies a position characterized by the extension and intensity of its presence. The depth and orientation of the flows determine attentional roles, more precisely positional actants involved in a sensitive affect, the source and the target of the sensitive affect, as well as the control actant, which regulates, accelerates, slows down, blocks, or filters the flow of sensitive affect. Two types and properties of sensitive field. First field, the intransitive sensitive field, the one of intimate motions. That's not a very problem. Intimate motions are internal movements in the flesh, which center of reference is the very flesh which they affect. In intimate motions, the sensitive affect is intransitive because it relates to nothing other than the flesh itself. It assumes no other presence than that of the flesh body. Thanks. The reference body is here an absence of person. It hurts, it itches, it burns, etc. This type of sensitive field, without differentiated actants, supposes only a sensitive matter. We therefore qualify it as intransitive. The flesh body is both the center of the field of presence and the entire field of presence. Therefore, the movements and associated sensations can be interpreted as contractions or dilations of the flesh body. Second type, the transitive sensitive field, the one of distinction between proper and non-proper. In this type of sensitive field, the basic predicate is that of the presence of otherness. There is something that is not me. This first distinction between the proper and the non-proper emerges in the same and unique contact. On the one hand, what is felt as proper, and on the other hand, what is felt as non-proper. Between the two, a border takes place, a provisionally common envelope, which is affected by this unique contact. Then, what is accepted as proper may be tasted, swallowed, inhaled, and therefore desired, sought after, etc. And what is characterized as non-proper will be discarded, refused, destroyed, and may become disturbing, threatening, or unwanted. The transitive sensitive field, with the elementary distinction between proper and non-proper, invents a sensitive frontier, which will lead ego to accept or to refuse the non-proper, to integrate or not the other into ego. The border then becomes a protective envelope. Third type of sensitive field, the reflective, the one that distinguishes me and the self. This type of sensitive field is particularly manifested by sensory motor activities. Motor sensations emanate from me, the flesh, and affect the state or position of the self, the proper body. In this type of field, the actantial roles change reciprocally. In the case of respiration, for example, the sensitive center is the target of the inhalation, but also, secondly, the source of exhalation. Between them, the control actant of respiration regulates alternation, rhythm, intensity, and force of the movement, which affects the sensitive intensity and extent. The reflective sensitive field has therefore all the positional actants, including regulation by the control actant. The property of reflexivity lays on another category, the distinction and relation between me and self. The movement is applied to the self by me. The ego projects an instance of mediation with the world, the self, which is configured to participate in interaction with the outside. Type 4. Cette fois-ci, je ne peux plus bouger. Four, the body envelope may multiply, acquire thickness, accumulate more or less distant concentric layers. We already know, for example, that the skin self of psychoanalysis is not to be confused with the personal bubble of proxemics, and that the second, the personal bubble of proxemics, is a more extensive projection of the first. This multiplication of envelopes is particularly evident in the case of perfume. The perfume body the perfumed accessories, the fragrant atmosphere are successive sensitive layers. All these envelopes refer to the source body, recalling its more or less distant present, but always accessible. In a way, they repeat its own envelope in successive layers. The recursive sensitive field, therefore, delivers a new property, the quantification of envelope, which leads to distinguish and relate the unit body, its envelope, the multiples, plural envelopes, and their various expansions, layers, enveloping cloud, etc. Five types of field. The distributed sensitive field. The internal sensitive field is particularly manifested during tasting. For example, wine tasting. Before the flavor itself, there is an unanalyzable tactile effect, shock, burning, prick, scratch of fluid, hard or tender, but it is only the experience of a sensitive field, a contact with the body envelope. We can only speak of flavor if operational phases emerge, and therefore actors, places, and moments. Each sensitive phase is then characterized by a predicate, for example, to burn, but attributed to an identifiable actor, for example, the pepper burns, and an identifiable place, a place in the internal body. And for specific period, latency period, attack, duration, etc. The sensitive affect is therefore deployed in the internal body thanks to a spatial, temporal, and actorial distribution of sensitive phases which are juxtaposed or even follow one another. The result is a real internal scene whose different elements are of a figurative order, moments, places, protagonists. The sensitive affect is converted into an emotional and cognitive presentation scene. 6. The shifted out sensitive field, which is attributed to the other. We can say disconnect, disconnect out sensitive field. There are two translations in English. The final type of sensitive field remains to be explored, which is disconnect from the sensitive body and may be deployed in complete autonomy by projection into a space of the field. The sensitive field of the other is that which gives to any entity occupying the presence field of ego the same sensitive properties as those of this ego field. An envelope, a depth, and its own horizons. In the disconnect sensitive field, new properties appear. First of all, the sensitive field of the other provides the identified actors with a shape, that is to say, a specific envelope. It is no longer just a question of an extent of the proper body envelope, but that of a specific other body's envelopes, perceived as such as shifted out envelopes. For example, in the case of vision, to identify the shape of the other body, another actant, different from the sensitive body itself, is required. A shifted out source, that is to say, light. And it is a contact between light and the material obstacles which occupy the field, which is interpreted as the envelope of the other body. In addition, this zone of contact, where other bodies form emerge, can also be a conflict zone, just like that of the contact with the proper body. The light does not cross or crosses the obstacle in case of transparent, translucent, or opaque obstacles. It is returned immediately and entirely for shiny or reflective obstacles, or incompletely and with some delay if obstacles are met or absorbed. Now, I will speak about body typologies. Along our path through the different types of sensitive fields, a new hypothesis emerges about the properties and types of sensitive fields which derive in part from the body instance which is considered and from the predicate which is applied to it. According to whether we are dealing with a single or multiple proper body, with the internal body or with the flesh body, the dominant device changes. Alongside this typology of sensitive fields based on their favorable properties, another one appears which is undoubtedly deeper, that of potential body instances involved in the sensitive interactions. The figural body typology which will result from it can be then considered as a semiotic matrix deduced from the typology of sensitive fields and radically independent of the typology of sensory channels. At this point, we have a first sketch of figural body typology comprising the me-flesh, living and sensitive matter, dynamic and deformable, the referent ego, the body as the point of reference of the sensitive field, the self-proper body, that is to say the envelope, unique or plural, ensuring the closure of the inner universe of the self, and for the internal self-body, the interoceptive theater of the sensitive, the inner space of the self. It is the syntagmatic deployment of this typology that generates the different types of sensitive field. I take an example, that of the self. By way of illustration, we can examine more precisely the case of the figure of sensitive envelope. It appears, for example, in psychoanalysis in Freud, with the notion of contact barriers, as defined in the Project for a Scientific Psychology. It is the topological shape and the limit of ego, and it is inseparable from body energy because the barrier is both a border dedicated to protect ego against external energies and an envelope of contention which contains and controls the internal energy of ego, regulates or blocks the discharge of these energies. These contact barriers give shape to the critical place where external and internal energies meet, confront, accumulate, discharge, and or reverse. As we have already seen, the envelope of ego makes the difference between what is good or bad, acceptable or intolerable, desirable or repulsive, for the proper body and for the flesh. In short, it embodies an elementary sorting axiology. Besides, the envelope maintains the unity and cohesion of the body. It contains all the parts. It totals them and gives a shape and an iconic identity to this whole. It protects against external stimuli, and it sorts out those that the body can accept and those that it must refuse between what would be toxic and to it and what would be beneficial to it. But as a place of interactions between internal and external energies, this envelope also gives them countless possibilities of interconnections. Then the sensitive envelope becomes a place of continuous connections between all internal and external sensitive affects, which Aristotle and medieval scholasticism had already identified as coesthesia or common sensorium. If, moreover, we suppose that this envelope keeps the traces of all these interactions, it receives semiotic imprints, that is to say, inscriptions resulting from accumulated interactions. So, maintenance, containing, totalization, conformation, connection, inscription, error, these are the figurative parts of the envelope. We could also, in the same way, deploy the sensory figurative parts of the mi-flash, of the reference self, of the internal hollow body, but not now and not time. For the deployment of the typologies. First, the sensitive body schemas. The sensitive process begins with an elementary effect which mobilizes a body actant, that is to say, a force endowed with a form. Elementary effect is an intensity, an energy, which modifies the balances between matter and body energy. The body typology is based on this basic opposition between content, matter, and container, form, with energy. It will give figural types of body actants. When the elementary effect specifically aims for the container form, the body actant adopts the figure of an envelope. When it specifically aims for matter content, the body actant takes the figure of the flesh. Two other figural types can be then identified, which reduces the body actant to a point, the center of reference, the point body, and that which empties the body of its kernel content and thus configures it into a hollow body. It is the schema presently projected. Now, energies are applied to these body figures activated by sensitive effects, and this activation produces energetic types. These energetic types are internal or external motions. The envelope body supports deformations, surface movements. If it retains their memory, these surface motions become traces, lasting traces. The hollow body releases an interior space that various entities, organs, figures, etc., may occupy, grows and modify by their own movement. The typical motions are then inner agitations. If it retains their memory, these inner agitations become predicative scenes. The point body, for its part, supports relative displacements to which it provides a reference position, and the corresponding type motion is a displacement of this reference position. The memory of these displacements gives series of positions. The flash body, finally, is that of the constituency of density changes, of dilations or contractions, that is to say, transformations of the sensory motor tone. The typical motion is then an intimate flash motion. The memory of these intimate motions give motor impressions. These typical motions of body energy can now be arranged on the first diagram in the synthesis, which highlights the typology of the global configurations of the body actants. That is to say, this schema. With surface deformation motion, intimate flash motion, external displacement motion, and internal agitation motion. This canonical diagram, the figural types and the motion types for body actants, accord each other. But discord is also possible and frequent. The two typologies can operate independently. For example, a flash body animated by intimate motions is concordant, while a flash body which agitates in internal body is discordant. All combinations are possible, but the discord situations poses a problem for the interpreter, which we'll discuss more precisely at the end of the lecture. Third typology, the one of interpreter imprints. The figural and energetic types result from the interaction between the body actants. These interactions leave markings of which they keep the memory on their envelope, in their flesh, in their internal space, or in the series of reference positions. Called imprints, these effects. There is a type of imprint associated with each sensitive body configuration, and there is an interpretative mode of each type of imprint. The concordance between the figural types, the motion types, and the imprint types is a condition for an immediate interpretation of the sensitive imprints. This is the reason for which Discord imposes more complex interpretative operations. This is the difference between short and long semiosis, one of the differences. The imprints produced by deformations are inscribed on the surface of the envelope body. They are supposed to be read and decipherable. The decryption aims mainly for the thematic content of the practice that left the imprints. The traces of uses on any object illustrate at least this interpretation scheme. They result from a multitude of functional manipulations accumulated during repeated practical uses that the interpretation tries to reconstruct. The imprints buried in the flesh body result from sensorimotor marking. They are produced by intense flesh motion or by the iteration of sensorimotor routine. The sensorimotor marking produces also an association with a set of figures and sensitive effects which are characteristic of the situation within which the original sensorimotor experience took place. The sensitive set constitutes a bundle maintained and consolidated by the sensorimotor memory. The sensorimotor imprint is buried in flesh body, and there will therefore be unburied to be manifested with the sensitive set, what I call a bundle. The other two types of body configurations also produce typical forms of imprints and interpretive process. The hollow body, where the agitation is stabilized in memory by the intensity of an affect, or by repetition, they produce scenic imprints. The formation of this kind of imprint and its interpretation will constitute a scenic presentation. Regarding the point body, displacement induced the relationship between different body positions. This system of positions can be memorized and compared to the current position of the point body. This confrontation is deictic. The deictic reference may also be marked by intensity or iteration. These markings are organized in linear series or in networks. Their interpretation proceeds by reconstituting the series of the other networks. It will then take the form of a path and itinerary. The result is the diagram presently projected. The complete set of 4 typological levels, which schematizes the semiotic part of the sensitive affect, can now be brought together in a single synthesis. To say that synthesis with the 4 levels of typology: body actants, energetic types, imprints, and interpreting procedures. Please, Paulus, how time remains?
10 minutes.
10? Okay, it's perfect. And last, sensible schemas, intuition and imagination. We have suggested above that the sensitive interpretative process extends into intuition and imagination when there is a discord between figural body, energetic type, and imprint type. Let us take a case that we have already mentioned. The figural type of the sensitive body may be that of the flesh body. And on the other hand, the typical motion may be internal agitation, that discords. Our figural typology distinguishes, in fact, the body without organ, as Deleuze said, the dynamic matter of the flesh body, and the body with organ, the hollow body inhabited by places, agents, functions, and acts. The first is subject to global dilations, contractions, that we constantly perceive. And the second is dedicated to localized and specific agitation, which in principle remain imperceptible. The discord is then due to the fact that sensitive effects, which are specific to such and such an internal place and exceptionally manifested and perceived, and yet they can only to do so by activating the flesh body, the body without organs. The activity of the hollow body is thus converted into contractions and dilations of the flesh body. In case of such a discord, we have to imagine a specific sort of body situation where, for example, imperceptible activities of the hollow body, internal agitations, can nevertheless manifest themselves and be perceptible as dilatations and contraction of the flesh body. And these situations may be, for example, an intense emotional disturbance or an unhealthy pain. Another example, in a work of art, a similar situation can be found. In this book, Morphology and Aesthetic, Jean Petitot devotes an entire chapter to the research in Piero della Francesca's paintings for compositions which divert perspective and allow the spectator to imagine configurations that do not belong to the relevance plan of the painted scene. By diverting the codes and norms of the standard perspective, these compositions reveal other connections than those of the depths of the perceived space. For example, Petitot shows that in the Annunciation of Arezzo, the non-generic shift imposed on the scenic presentation allows some alignments that form a cross. The cross is a canonical element of Annunciation scenes, but it is absent from that scene, while being suggested to intuition by the effect of the diversion of perspective, and a surface inscription, that of the cross, is then superimposed to the three-dimensional scene. From the sensitive point of view, the tension between a scenic presentation mode based on hollow body with a surface inscription mode based on the envelope body asks for resolution. The displacement of the diversion of perspective creates a tension between the two modes. This tension cannot be resolved in the elementary sensitive affect, and an extension of the sensitive is then necessary, an autonomous sensitive dimension, which reconfigures the whole of the perceived situation. It is then in intuition that the spectator can accept to see an inscribed cross, where the scene presentation only offers random alignments in the composition. What is the transsensitive dimension? In perception, a situation is first given to be seized in the immediate sensitive affect and then unfolds from this sensitive seizing on another dimension beyond the immediate sensitive. The transsensitive process does not take the path of conceptualization, and it is maintained in the global sphere of the sensitive. This relationship established by intuition, possibly extended by imagination, makes the link between different modes of apprehending, and in particular, as we have suggested it, between sensitive schemes which may be non-concordant. This sensitive dimension, unlike the first sensitive contact, leaves on the observer an impression that is both synthetic and still confused, which will be the support and the incentive for the exploration of the animated world. I propose now the canonical sequence of sensitive intuition. We can decline 4 phases. The transensitive dimension first presents itself in intuition as impressive, confused impression. We have also already indicated its synthetic character. We take together several approaches. Finally, as it gives access to another world of meaning, higher or deeper than that of the sensitive world, it also functions as anagogic. So the transitive dimension operated by intuition will therefore follow the path impression, synthesis, anagogy. If this process is extended by a global reconfiguration of the situation, for example, the implicit presence of a scene hidden behind the presented one, a 4th phase, imagination, completes the intuition process, that is to say, impression, synthesis, anagogy, imagination. On the transensitive dimension, light, color, lines, texture, prosody, rhythm are expressions not for conceptual and denominable contents, but for intuitive contents specific to this transensitive dimension. The specificity of intuition precisely is in this direction of semiosis towards immanent transitive contents, elusive by a conceptual categorization, and which have the form of the already mentioned paths: impression, synthesis, anagogy, and imagination. The 4 phases of transitive intuition imply an interior activity of semiotic objects or situations, and therefore at least an animated character projected by the observer. For the impression, the activity of seizing the observer. For synthesis, the activity for weaving internal relationships. For the gift of anagogic meaning, a semiotic revelation. For imaginary reconfiguration, a quasi-fictional capacity. This would suppose that we grant the semiotic objects or situations both a specific internal activity and an external agency. It means that in the sensitive relationship, they would be endowed with a capacity for influence or incentive, a capacity inscribed in their sensitive elements. The sensitive is not only given to feel and to share, it is likely to excite impressions, emotions, leading the perception of sensitive activity. We could then evoke the sensuality of the sensitive, by which sensitivity can be not only transmitted and received, but also inspired, moved, solicited, seduced, provoked, etc. Thus, the observer, influenced or excited, is encouraged to construct the meaning on the transensitive dimension by relying on the expressions that lead to it and the relationships that associate them. All this gives access to the manifestation of an immanent activity into an animated world. This internal animation is not an observable datum, but an impression aroused by intuition and transformed by imagination. Finished. Conclusion. The entire path we have just completed strives to build the progressive schematization of elementary sensitive affect. To do this, it goes through several phases. First, the extraction of the different types of sensitive fields. Second, the identification of sensitive body instances. 3, the consolidation of these instances into figural types and into energetic types, the motions. 4, the identification of sensitive imprints and their modes of interpretation. And finally, 5, the overcoming of the immediate sensitive through intuition and imagination. The result is an hypothesis for a semiotic mapping of the sensitive to be submitted now to concrete analysis and to be validated or falsified by semiotic practices. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for such theoretically dense lecture. I don't know whether we have 15 minutes for questions. Yeah, fine. So colleagues, you're welcome. Your questions, your queries, maybe objections. You wanted, well, you're welcome. While maybe you are thinking, would you comment on the slide you have omitted where you try to explain, not try to explain, but omitted with 4 levels?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to comment. Okay.
Yeah.
So the 4 levels are each one typology, and each successive level is deduced on the first precedent. For example, first level, the body actants, the typology of the 4 body actants, envelope body, flesh body. The second level, the emotions, is deduced about the first. And there are 4 types of motions. Motions of the flesh body, motions of the point body, motions of the envelope body, and motions of the hollow body. The third is deduced about the 2 typologies, or 2 precedent typologies, because imprints associated body actant and motions that leave their imprints. And finally, for the last typology is that of the processes of interpretations. So we have a process of inscriptions, of memorization of the traces, encryptions, burying, scenic presentation, and locations, and processes of interpretation, that is to say, descriptions, unburying, reconstituting itineraries, and representations. And this is the mapping that we have to add to this mapping the last part of my presentation, that is to say, the transitive dimension above this, which is analyzed by intuition and imagination.
Thank you for your presentation. I was in my head constantly the notion of empathy and thinking that as people of humanities, we are required in a way to have very strong and developed abilities with empathy, because I think it's perhaps the only way to imagine other people's mindsets. So, what can you say about this notion of empathy? Imagining other people's feelings, emotions, and imaginations. How could you map that into your framework, for instance?
I think that empathy is another thing than perception and sensation. It is an anthropological relation deeper than sensory and sensitive problems. But on this layer, that is to say, on this anthropological dimension, it is evidently possible to observe sensations, emotions, etc., linked to empathy. First, empathy is only thinkable if we have two actants. And one actant is able to take the place of the other, and reciprocally. It's minimal. Or in these typologies, in these types, there are, in some cases, 2 or 3 actants, but in other cases, only one actant. And it is not possible to imagine an empathy in these cases. Look, I think it is too complicated to enter in detail to this question, but I think that it is 2 problems that are connected but different.
Thank you very much for this interesting tableau of the different body schemata. I have to think of something. I've been working on gesture for some time as a thematic practice, and they seem to integrate a lot of your different levels and schemata because they're the body, they are movement, they are the self and others. And so I was wondering whether you have thought about the communicating body and communicating gestures, communicating the inside and the going out of oneself and so forth. So that would be my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I have followed and directed the thesis of one of my students about tango. This student now is a colleague. And one of the most difficult questions about dance and tango is either 2 bodies or 1 body. Is it possible to describe the practice and the bodily interactions in this case by using 2 bodies? No, it is not possible. The solution is to consider the two individuals come 1 body, which its own envelope, its own sensory motor memory, that is to say the memory of the 2, not of 1 and 1, or 2 together, etc. There are very interesting and complex problems in body interactions, and I don't think that my mapping simplifies, but it is possible that it may explain.
We have a question from Kari Liku, who's taking part online, so I'll just read it for you. The question is, how would you distinguish between sensitive field and Umwelt? Are these the same?
Je pense que la notion d'Umwelt, I think that Umwelt notion is more complex, more complete than the notion of field of presence. Know that the notion of field of presence was, as I said, conceived, defined by la phenomenology. Mainly Merleau-Ponty. And the project of Merleau-Ponty was not the ecological manner. It was a project about the relation between the sensible man, sensible person with a sensible world. Nevertheless, an Umwelt is also a sensible world for sensible bodies, the bodies that are anchored in the envelope. The main difference between the sensitive field and the envelope is that in sensitive field, there is no choice. That is to say, any entity, any manifestation, any sensitive effect is considered by the center of the perception. And in the contrary, we know that in an unbelt, there are selections, co-selections between the capacity of the center of perception, that is to say the individual, the being individual, or the being species, and selection by the envelope, the environment itself. That is to say, there is a co-selection, and there is no correspondent in the theory of present field. So I think it is possible to make the path and to add to the present field the restrictive conditions, to say the principle of co-selection, and they are compatible now. It is possible. A lot complicated, but it is possible. Thank you for the question, because I am interested to Unzelt and to the next school.
Thank you very much for the presentation. You presented a reference of sensitive intuition. What other kinds of intuition do you separate? Or if you do so, how do you can separate, for example, cognitive intuition or conscious intuition? Thank you.
I don't understand what I have to separate.
You present a sequence of sensitive intuition. Written here in the last table.
In the last, yes.
It's a sequence of imagination.
Well, it is not possible to return, see, yes. Is it possible to return? Yes. Is it possible to return? Yes. And it is this.
The sensitive intuition.
It is the sequence, it's not several types of intuitions. It is the sequence of the 4 phases, the 4 complete phases of the path of intuition. That I analyze intuition as a sequence in a syntagmatic way. And so effectively, the path may stop on impression, but the intuition is not accomplished. It can also stop at synthesis, but intuition is not accomplished. It can stop at anagogy, because with anagogy there is a content which is associated to the expression that are taken by impression and synthesis. And imagination is a 4th phase for all the cases of complete reconfiguration of the scene. But there are not 4 types of intuition, okay? It is a sequence. To be experimented. It is an hypothesis.
Thank you.
Thank you.